Hey everybody online, my name is Corey Cortez from CMO, and we're going to give the in-person audience a few more minutes to come in. In the meantime, if you would like to see the presentation that we're going to present today, you can find a copy in the event material on your WebEx. We will upload the final version onto ServiceNow and let everybody know when that happens. All right, thank you. Testing? Okay. Okay, cool. All right, hey everybody. So I just gave an announcement for the online folks, and we're going to give the in-person folks a few more minutes to kind of trickle in the room. But if you're online in the WebEx and you are looking for the presentation today, you can go to the event information page on your WebEx after you sign in, and it should be there under event material. And so this is a copy. We will be posting the final version on ServiceNow, and then we'll let everyone know when we do that. In the meantime, if you don't see it, please just refresh. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Corey Cortez. I'm with Fiscal CMO. We're here today to talk through the November release. So the November release is going to be the next step in our goal of syncing SEO Legacy and Fiscal. And so the go live is going to be November 4th. And this is the SEO Legacy transaction interface. All right, so to help you get ready for this change, we've got about 5 key activities. We're on number 2. The first thing that we did was a few weeks ago, we invited some highly impacted departments to get some hands-on keys experience with the new functionality. Today, we're hoping to help you guys all understand the changes that are going to come and how they're going to impact the end users. We'd like to, at the end of this, we'll talk more about our change discussions. It's just having some of those conversations. I know a lot of the people in the room today, maybe on the call, are department liaisons or maybe supervisors or managers. It's just having those conversations with the end users that are actually going to be impacted by the change. We'll have a WebEx only pre-go live town hall where you'll have another opportunity to ask questions if you may have them. And then when we go live, we'll have, for this one, we won't have too much content, but we'll have some links and stuff for you that are available. Something that there's a demonstration later on today that our subject matter expert, Anthony Trong from SEO, is going to be going over. And so it'll be some of that content. All right, so to get started today, we have a survey question. And so for the folks in the room, you can use your phone. You can go to menti.com. You can use the code 738759. Same for the people at home. The goal of this question is we're hoping to do more measurement here at Fiscal, and we're really trying to get an idea of where you feel you are related to some of the changes that are coming up. There's going to be a few more of these Menti polls throughout the presentation. They update live, and we're hoping we do use this information to make recommendations and changes. It might be an opportunity for us to do more outreach with departments and kind of see where we feel we're at. So thank you guys for your feedback. Okay. You guys can continue to do that. Remember, the code is 738759. We'll go ahead and start moving forward with some of the changes. In November, the main thing that we're going to start doing is we're going to be interfacing more of these journal entries from SEO Legacy. So anything that's initiated in SEO Legacy, the goal is to have all of those be in Fiscal in sync. So SEO is going to continue to provide all the same content we do today, the agency reconciliation report, for example. And for the most part, you no longer need to do catch-up journals. There are some exceptions that we'll talk through later as well. Okay. So today we're going to give you some more detail on what exactly is going on. We have, as part of the SCO integrated solution, there are several interfaces between Fiscal and SCO legacy that are operating both inbound and outbound. And what that means is that we are recording all of that data in Fiscal. If it's outbound from Fiscal, it means going to SCO legacy. That happens in various areas. And if it's inbound to Fiscal, it's coming from SCO legacy and it's being posted in Fiscal. That way the data is always in sync. There are some limitations to that we'll get into a little bit later. But in the today column for your inbound and outbound, this is everything that already exists. There's already budget journals that are coming through that went live previously this year. We went live with the payroll AR calculators in June or July, depending on your department. And then various outbound interfaces went live last year throughout the fiscal year. Starting in November, we're talking about the TC35s and 38s. These are any of the transactions that are remaining. There's going to be some exceptions to that, which I'll get into a little bit more. And then payroll, that's going to be a big one. And then after November, we've got some more of these that are going to come out in different times, and hopefully we'll be able to give you some more information towards the end of this year on when that's going to happen. And that's for both inbound and outbound. So hopefully you guys can use this as a reference. We got a lot of feedback from different people talking about what hasn't come, what's already gone live. Hopefully this clarifies that with all the departments. If you have any questions on it, please let us know. And then for the folks in the room, I forgot to mention that we're doing a new format. We got a lot of feedback about the online experience with the audio and so forth, maybe not being what would be expected. So if you have any questions in the room, please go up. We have a podium with a mic available, so you can just line up, and then we'll get those questions answered as soon as we can. So let's go through some things that will not be interfaced. So TC38 CPF vouchers are not going to interface. You'll still need to do your catch-up transactions for these. The reason why is because this is initiated in Fiscal. And same for the TC48, the ORF vouchers. So this is things that are not going to be interfaced inbound. Any transaction that originates from a Fiscal outbound interface, it won't interface back into Fiscal to double post. So we've got logic in Fiscal to prevent that. Journals with direct cash impact, post-issuance transactions, transactional lines with fund 0000. And then finally, there's this new kind of document that's going to, new thing that's going to happen. It's NF document prefix. It's going to be a new business process for departments to identify transaction requests that are SCO legacy only corrections. And then we'll get you some more details about that process in the future. There's going to be a form update to the CA 504. You can see that screenshot below. And so until that form is available, you can change your JE and the document number field to write NF, and then let SCO know that it's an SCO legacy specific change. So we'll get more information about that later. This might be the first time you're hearing about that. There could be cases where you need to make a change in SCO legacy but not Fiscal, and you wouldn't want it to interface back. So this is how we're going to do it. Okay. So I want to get into a little bit about the benefits of us creating these interfaces. By posting those SEO initiated transactions the same night they post an SEO legacy in Fiscal. We're supporting all month-end close activities as transactions that occur in legacy are going to be reflected in Fiscal right away. And then by keeping your department's expenditures and revenues up to date in Fiscal, your spending authority in Fiscal will be more accurate. It'll accurately reflect what your actual commitment control is. Okay. So let's talk about some new information that's coming into Fiscal, or new functionality that we've created for you to help you with some of the downsides of this interface. So we have some new queries. We're going to talk more about the limitations of the interface and what we've done to help you with it. So we've created 2 new queries for you for all departments. We'll have access to these on November 4th when we go live. One is the posted SEO legacy GL journals query. That query is going to be available to see all things that are interfaced inbound from SEO legacy to Fiscal. And you can use this for reconciliation with SEO. We also got a lot of feedback from departments on the reclassification efforts. We know that since SEO only has that higher level data, it doesn't have some of the departmental chart fields that you use today. It might seem like a very large extra burden. So what we've done is we've gone ahead and created this reclassification query. And so this is really to be used with the GL journal upload tool if your department uses it. If your department does not use it, it can be used as a reference. And really what our goal is to reduce any additional work while meeting the goal of keeping SEO legacy in sync with Fiscal and in all of the technical constraints that are around that. So like I just said, the Fiscal chart of accounts, you'll have your appropriation chart fields, and then you'll have some department chart fields. The appropriation chart fields are those that exist in SEO legacy, and then the department chart fields can be the chart fields that are used by departments for your additional reporting needs. So since SEO legacy doesn't have those department chart fields, doesn't have the data for them, and departments have combination edit rules, what the interface does is it defaults some of the values that are interfacing in. And those are the account. So that's that 5390950 account. So if for any of these that are going to transact or going to interface into that account, you'll need to know that check that account and then move everything around out of that account so it's in the proper account for you and your department. And then there's a default code for both the reporting structure as well as the service location. And all the defaults start with SEO, and they're just followed by trailing nines. Those are just some examples. Okay. Another piece of feedback that we were getting is around the budget date. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the logic of how that works. The budget date is going to be set to the transaction date from SEO legacy. However, if that SEO legacy transaction date is past the last date available to encumber for the appropriation, then the budget date will be set to the last date available to encumber. There was some questions about this for the continuous appropriation as well, or any other appropriations that have extended encumbrance availability periods. So if it's always going to post to that transaction date or the current period in that case. However, if you'd like to move it to a prior period, all you'll need to do is you'll have to reclassify it to whatever period that you would like to do. The reason for that is we don't know what your desired period is, so we just use the latest one. Okay. Another big piece of concern that we're getting is around the error management side of this. One of the queries I talked about earlier, let's go back to it, the posted SCO legacy GL journals query. This query is going to have everything that interfaces. And all the way to the right is going to have what the error status or what the status of those journals are. If it's been posted, budget checked, it's valid. So what happens if you see something on that page that is an error? You might see a budget exception error or a chart of accounts error, but it'll show up as an error there. And so we wanted to let you know departments are not responsible for fixing those. That is going to be on the Fiscal SEO team. There may be cases, though, that the Fiscal SEO team will reach out to departments for information if it's needed. And in the case that the control budget is exceeded, the error is just going to be overwritten since it's already been posted in SEO Legacy. And we know, we also heard some feedback that departments were worried about their spend authority in that case. It's not all departments, but some departments are running very tight, or maybe as it gets towards year end or whenever. You may have to do some kind of work on your side in that case. And that could be, you might need to liquidate your encumbrances, transfer expenditures, review cost allocation percentages, or check for erroneous postings. You may have double postings or something like that. And we'd like to recommend the following best practices and tips to kind of improve your overall experience. The first is we'd like you to transact in Fiscal whenever possible. So as I talked about before, whenever you transact in Fiscal, in the cases where it's needed, it'll interface to SEO Legacy, and you don't need to do any kind of reclassification or double work there. When you do, to help you with your reconciliation, when you actually go in and reclassify things, we do recommend that you note the legacy document ID in the reason for request field. And then we also recommend that you review your KK activity for double postings. As I said before, you might have erroneous postings. And so you can use that and you can go ahead and look up anywhere where you've got your reason for request. All right, and the final recommendation is that you should reconcile with SEO Legacy on a regular basis. You can use your agency reconciliation report in conjunction with the query that we're providing and make sure that they match. Throwing a lot of information your way. We haven't had any questions yet. Yes.
On the slide where it's all interface errors will be resolved by SEO, will those need to be resolved before month-end close, or how does that impact month-end close?
So the expectation is that these will be fixed in a timely manner. Currently for the transactions that are coming in since June, that's just the payroll AR and calculators. Those errors are being corrected same day. The volume is going to explode in November, but it should not affect your month-end close.
Okay. And do we need to keep track of it? So like right now when we do month-end close, there's reports that we run and we have to make sure those reports are clear. We don't need to keep track, right? SEO will be responsible to make sure if they're hitting because of budget exception errors or chart of accounts, they'll keep track and they'll correct, right? We won't have to be pulling any reports to see if there's any transactions.
Well, outside of the normal reconciliation work that you do, right, just for your monthly reconciliation, I don't anticipate that you'll need to add any more. Yeah.
I just want to add some a point that if the correction is not done before you close the month end, just when you run the queries, that you will have something that stuck in the error, so that you won't be able to close a month. So, but we try our best to correct all the error in a timely manner.
All right, thank you. So that was Anthony Trong from SEO and Carmen Fernandez from SEO. I think we have some questions from our online audience.
The first question is, this person wants to confirm that cash transfers are interfacing. And if so, when we post these, we use accounts 621XXX and 6521XXX. And if these interface, will the same accounts be used?
Okay, so I believe those are the fiscal equivalents of legacy T and 3 series R. So yes, those same accounts will be used. And just for your awareness, in the case of very simple journals, where it's just one T type and one R type on the transaction, the interface will be able to populate the correct fund and affiliate information. It's just the other side, right? But if it's a more complicated one with, let's say, multiple T and R accounts on the same transaction, in those cases, some default values will be placed in the fund and BU affiliates, and you will have to reclass those.
Thank you. The next question that we have is, when will the queries be available?
They will be available November 4th alongside this deployment.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have another Menti poll for you. Let us know which of the best practices that we shared that if you found any of those helpful. If you didn't find any of them helpful, it's okay to just respond nothing. Okay. Yeah, we're going over a lot of very complicated kind of stuff. Hopefully we're being clear on it. We took some feedback from departments and we try to present as much information as possible. So we do have some questions from our online audience.
The question is, do we need to reclassify the SEO default COA and reporting structure to department codes?
So that's going to be at the department's discretion. I imagine for most departments you will have to, but if they don't need to, then they can leave it as the default.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your participation in the Menti Poll. All right, I wanted to go into the CLO TC37s that are going to be interfacing. So we've got Fiscal 187 out there. It kind of describes a little bit about how you're supposed to post your monthly payroll journal. To eliminate that altogether, which is the goal of our November release, you'll need to make sure that your PRU table is set up properly. And then if you ever make any updates to your PRU table in the future, you'll need to let us know. That's just by informing the FSC. So some guidelines. We recommend that you use one consistent reporting structure across all of your reporting units. That is the case for most departments. We know that there may be exceptions, and if you are exception, then you'll still need to do the reclassification. And then you should contact us and we can see what we can do about helping you out. And then we also recommend you always use account 5100. And the way it works is we use the values that you've configured in your PRU table to populate the interfaced CLO files. And then when you run your labor distribution, it will reverse out those CLO journals and post using your configured values from your LD. So we know that your LD is going to have a lot of different values. And if you use one consistent reporting unit across all of them, your CLOs will come in the proper one and then be distributed out in LD. So we have some questions on this from our online audience.
The question is, do you have a list of SCO JEs to guide departments which SCO JEs interface to Fiscal?
Okay. On page 6 of our presentation today, you'll see a table which lists out all of the different transaction codes that are live today, that are going to be live starting in November, and then there's a few that are going to be coming live throughout the next year.
Thank you.
Okay. So to make sure that all departments, to minimize the work after we go live, we're going to be sending out a task Tech 909 to update your department's PRU table to match the recommended guidelines. And like I said before, the reason this kind of matters is that we want to make sure that we're reducing the amount of workload departments do. So this task will help out if it's completed. All right, now we have a demonstration from our SEOSME.
Okay. So for this demonstration, I'm just going to be going over the 2 queries that Corey mentioned before that will be deployed in November. Okay. So the first of these is the one that's picking up the posted transactions. And for this one, I want to first mention that this is only picking up the transactions that were interfaced by the legacy transactions interface. It won't pick up, for example, some of the interface transactions from AR or AP. But so this query, it's going to pick up, it's going to display all of the lines that were interfaced by the legacy transactions interface. And it's got some legacy information to help you tie back to legacy, so to your tab run or to your SEO-JE. So the first column, for example, is the SEO legacy transaction code. And then we also have a column for the legacy document ID. This one is a CLA document. And then the journal date will match the SEO transaction date. And then all the way over at the end, the line description is from the transactional line description of the SCOJE. And like Corey mentioned, at the very end, the query also displays the journal header status, the journal edit status, and the budget line status. And again, if there are any errors that prevent the journal from being posted, SEO Fiscal will correct those errors on a timely basis. And yeah, so this query, like I mentioned, it picks up every line of the interface GL journals. And for CLA documents in particular, we were able to identify kind of the account that we think should be used. So in this case, we don't see the default 5390-950 default. So it's just 5150-250, which is used for, I think, EAP fees. But we do see a default value for reporting structure. And like Corey mentioned, that's because the interface just has what there is in SEO legacy. And of course, that's just controllers level information. It doesn't have any of the department level or lower level accounting information that departments need. We have a question.
So what's the criteria that you can request this query for? Is it by the journal dates?
Okay. So the parameters on the run control parameters for the query are the legacy document ID, and you can use wildcards. For example, in order to pick up all of the CLA documents, you put CLA %, and it'll pick them all up for the date range that you specify. And the next criteria, or the next parameters, there's also the ability to search based on a journal date range. And also, you can specify a BU if your department has access to multiple BUs.
We have a couple of questions. The first question is, will an alternative account be usable when posting data from the monthly payroll files?
I think we're going to have to check with Fiscal and DOF on that.
Thank you. The next one is regarding the two systems, SEO legacy system and Fiscal. And the question is, are we running the two systems when SEO has completed with Fiscal?
Okay, so I think is the question when SEO fully comes on board on Fiscal. Okay. So in that case, the expectation is that this interface in particular, the SEO legacy transactions interface, will still be running, but it will only be bringing in basically transactions for the deferred and exempt departments, because otherwise transactions should be transacted in, or recorded in Fiscal initially.
Thank you. The next question is, will APO/ARO be part of the TC38 interface?
Okay, so that one, the APOs and APCs, they've already been part of this interface basically. For some departments, that deployment happened in June. For other departments, it was in July. I think if they're asking that question, it's more like, will this be double posted because the payroll activity is already coming in? So no, it'll continue to come in the same way it has been for the past few months.
Okay.
I just want to add one more thing. So if the department is looking for if this query will cover this kind of transaction, the answer is yes. So when they run this, they can utilize this query to search for the ARO, APC, and APO documents.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it will also pick up those, but of course, for the departments that have been using the payroll AR functionality, you know that we have also got a dedicated query for those transactions, which provides more information.
Okay, thank you. And the last question that we have for now is, what happens if the interface journal fails the budget check, and who is responsible for fixing that?
SEO Fiscal's commitment control team will be responsible for fixing those errors.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and so I think that we've covered this query. The next query is kind of the reclassification template that Corey mentioned earlier. And this query differs from the previous one in a couple of ways. So first off, only only journals that have posted will be picked up by this query. And this query also ignores the pending cash balancing lines. So it's only picking up the distribution lines. And like we've been saying, this query is intended to minimize the amount of key entry work departments need to do in order to reclassify journals. And so if you look at column E on this query, you'll see the header is labeled line type. So for each distribution line of the original GL journal, it's going to be displayed twice on this query, basically. So the original line picks up all of the chart field values the way that they were interfaced in, but the sign on the amount is flipped, because when you're reclassifying a journal, you're backing out the SEO interface posting, and you're putting it back in with your departmental chart field values, right? So that's why the sign's flipped on that line. And then the distribution line is also picked up and displayed with labeled it as the reclass line. And on the reclass line, some of the departmental chart field values are blanked out. So for example, reporting structure here is blanked out because it's intended that departments would be filling this in with their own information. And the sign, of course, is the normal sign on that. And I want to mention, for the departments that participated in the BPD session, we received a lot of feedback that it'd be helpful if this query was updated so that the column order matched the spreadsheet journal upload template. So we've gone ahead and made that change. So the idea is basically after you fill in all of the departmental chart field values on the reclass lines, you can go ahead and just copy paste from there. How many lines was this? Sorry. Yep. So you can just copy and paste it straight into the spreadsheet journal upload template. And in later slides, I think we've got some information, job aid, and USLs if your department does not currently use spreadsheet journal upload template and would like to.
I just want to add a little bit more information on this. I think before you guys copy this data to the journal upload template, it's the best practice is like to insert all the line that you require to reclassify the GL journal. Let's say, for example, in the first transaction, the $8.80. So if you need to put it in 4 different reporting structures, so we recommend you to do this in this here before you copy to the journal upload template.
And we also have a couple of questions right now. First question is, will these queries be released for our usage before November 4th?
No, they will be deployed November 4th.
Thank you. The next question is, are there plans to bring in the processing of no warrant claim schedules without the use of inter-unit billing into Fiscal?
So no warrant claim schedules. That will be something for a later release in March. I don't have details for that right now.
Okay, thank you.
And like Carmen mentioned, if, for example, that $8.80 line needed to be split into multiple reporting structures, you could just copy paste that the reclass line however many times, and then make sure to update the amount so that when you sum up all of those lines, the sum is still 0. And actually, I wanted to go back to the spreadsheet journal upload template and point out a few things. So first off, in the legal authority and reason for request up here, this is the field that we were recommending departments fill out with some reference to the documents that are being reclassified. And that's because most of the existing queries, such as the KK activity query that we mentioned earlier, pick up that field. So it's there for your reference. And then I also wanted to mention that because the reclassification template query only picks up posted transactions, for the overachievers out there, if you're running it, let's say, the same day, there could be some transactions that may need to be reclassified, but won't be picked up by the query because they're not posted, they're in error. And so I recommend checking the SEO transactions query, the GL108 transactions query, to check on the journal statuses and make sure that everything is posted and that you keep track of the ones that were in error in case you need to reclassify them at a later time.
So one more thing I want to add it, as Anthony mentioned about that, in the legal authority and reasonable request fields that you put in your the legacy document that you are going to reclassify. So this field will actually, the information will actually show in your DOF, the DFQ KK activity query. So in the long description fields, which is you will be utilized is one of the fields that you can utilize to identify the duplicate posting. So in case in your department, you have a multiple staff responsible for posting those GL journal, then you don't know whether the other person is posting it, so you can run the query and identify using that field. If you would make it a good practice every time you put this information in this field, that will help you a lot.
All right, thank you, Anthony. And then we noted that query on the best practices and tips page. Yeah, I hope you guys like the reclass tool. It's something that we heard a lot of feedback, and so we put our heads together and we came up with it. Thanks, Anthony. And you guys can use this. You always do your final validation to make sure everything sums to 0. And then you can use the upload tool to upload it. If you prefer not to use upload tool, you can also use this as a template to do your transactions online. Okay. And then again, we know that maybe not all departments use the GL journal upload. If you would like to, there is a job aid available. It's Fiscal 001. It was the very first one ever made. And you can find that on ServiceNow. And in addition to that is if you would like to get some support from Fiscal, We request that all departments or users who would like to learn more about using the GL Journal upload, use the user support lab, sign up. Our on-site support team will be available there to help you with that functionality. Okay. It was a lot of content. We had some questions. We're going to be here for a little while if you have more. But one thing I really want to request everybody in this room, everybody online, do is have some of these conversations with your impacted end users. Everything today is around the GL processor and GL approver. So whoever does your reconciliation with SCO legacy to make sure you're entering catch-up transactions. These are the people in the staff that need to know about the change, since it is going to impact their work come July. So all we really ask is that you work with the end users to build understanding. Having these conversations can bring up questions that we would like to get before we go live, oftentimes. So you can always ask your questions directly to the Fiscal CMO mailbox, and we'll do our best to get back to you. And then we're going to have a formal task read 905 go out to the department liaisons soon, so be on the lookout for that. And then lastly, as we close out, we start to close out our workshop today, I'd like to know how you kind of feel about the November 2019 release after hearing all the information that we gave you today. And so everyone's aware the purpose of this question is that it helps gauge whether my team, as we put together content working with the subject matter experts, has hit the mark on creating content that you as the audience find helpful, and helps build your understanding for the November release as it's coming. We're always looking for feedback from departments. So the question after this that we have is, kind of what worked for today's session, and then we have another question, what we can improve on. All right, thanks for your feedback, everybody. We'll move on to the next question. What did you like about today's workshop? And then we're going to hide the results of this so you guys can tell us anything that you liked. During this time, if you guys had any questions on any of the content, online or in person, you can use this time to answer questions as well. We're going to move on to the next question. What can we prove on for our next workshop? Okay. So this Menti question is going to stay up if you'd like to give feedback. Other avenues of feedback are going to be the Fiscal email mailbox. Anything related to the SCR releases, my team personally looks through them and make sure that we incorporate any kind of feedback we get. So we really do appreciate any feedback on the kinds of activities we do with departments. That's why we went through earlier in the presentation and listed out the roadmap of types of things that we do for each of these releases. We have small windows to get out as much information to you guys as possible, and we want to make sure we're really meeting your needs as effectively as we can. So thank you for that. It doesn't look like we're getting any more questions on the content from the people online as well, nor the people in the room. So one of the things we did include is we have a in-person podium now, since we heard so much feedback about the questions not being heard clearly online. That's why it's there. All right, thank you everybody for attending. I'm going to close today's workshop. Have a great weekend.